World News program coming to you live from Algiers with me, Madame Zien. The headlines. UN Secretary General stressed that the scale of death and destruction in Gaza exceeds that of any other conflict at the opening of the 80th session of the UN General Assembly, emphasizing that achieving peace in the Middle East must pass through the two-state solution. Algeria affirmed that international consensus on the two-state solution is the main guarantee for a just settlement of the Palestinian issue. Also coming up tonight, on the 718th day of Israel's genocidal war on the Gaza Strip, dozens of people were killed or wounded in new horrific massacres. The Nasser Medical Complex in the south of the Strip reported that 3 children died of starvation. Next, in Sudan, the army confirmed inflicting heavy losses on the rapid support forces in Al Fasher. The United Nations said the RSF is obstructing the delivery of humanitarian aid to the city. And in the latest developments of the war in Ukraine, Russia reaffirmed its push to advance deeper into the Kharkiv region. Trump threatened to impose tariffs on Moscow if it refuses to reach an agreement, while the Kremlin denied Russia's involvement in the drone flights near Copenhagen. Hello and welcome back to the details of your nightly news. First, the meetings of the United Nations General Assembly have begun with the participation of hundreds of leaders, diplomats, and senior officials from countries around the world. This gathering comes on the sidelines of the 80th session of the UN General Assembly, bringing together around 200 heads of state and government, hundreds of ministers, thousands of diplomats, as well as journalists and representatives of civil society organizations from various countries. The United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres warned Tuesday that the horrors in Gaza persist, with the scale of killing crossing all limits. Speaking at the opening of the 80th UN General Assembly in New York, Guterres said the pillars of peace are crumbling under a culture of impunity, stressing the need for a decisive choice in favor of international law. He underlined that the UN debates are a matter of life and death for millions.
And nothing can justify the collective punishment of the Palestinian people and the systematic destruction of Gaza. We know what is needed. Permanent ceasefire now. All the hostages released now. Full humanitarian access now. And we must not relent in the only viable answer to sustainable Middle East peace, a two-state solution as so eloquently reaffirmed yesterday.
And speaking before the UN General Assembly, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres on Tuesday stressed that the only viable solution to achieve peace in the Middle East is the two-state solution, emphasizing that nothing justifies collective punishment of the Palestinian people or the systematic destruction of their livelihoods.
The horrors are approaching a third monstrous year. They are the result of decisions that defy basic humanity. The scale of death and destruction are beyond any other conflict in my years as Secretary General. The International Court of Justice has issued legally binding provisional measures in the case named Application of the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide in the Gaza Strip. Since then, a famine has been declared and the killing has intensified.
The joint statement by the presidency of the high-level international conference on resolving the Palestinian issue and implementing the two-state solution held at the UN quarters in New York called for a permanent ceasefire in Gaza. It emphasized that the New York Declaration adopted by the General Assembly with 142 votes in favor reaffirms the international community's commitment to the two-state solution. The statement also highlighted the worsening humanitarian tragedy amid Israel's intensifying assault on Gaza City and urged unimpeded delivery of aid. The Palestinian Ministry of Foreign Affairs welcomed the joint statement issued by the presidency of the International Two-State Solution Conference in New York, which called for ending the genocide in Gaza and halting settlement activity in the West Bank. The ministry urged all countries to swiftly sign and adopt a declaration, ensure an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, and implement all its provisions to achieve a just and lasting peace in the region. It also expressed gratitude to the states that voiced support for the Palestinian people. The Algerian Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf said his country welcomes the convening of the Two-State Solution Conference in line with its commitments to strengthen international consensus. Speaking at the high-level international conference on the peaceful settlement of the Palestinian issue and the implementation of the two-state solution, Attaf stressed that this consensus is the main guarantor of a just, lasting and final resolution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and a firm barrier against Israeli expansionist policies promoted under the Greater Israel myth.
This consensus is the main guarantor of a just, lasting and final settlement of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. This international consensus stands as a firm barrier against Israel's expansionist policies under the cover of the myth of the Great Israel. This international consensus is also the strongest response to the Israeli occupation's illusions and delusions that is the only one holding the right to veto the establishment of the Palestinian state.
And Algerian Minister of State and Foreign Affairs Ahmed Attaf said the time has come for concrete action to enforce this consensus, stressing the need to intensify efforts on 4 levels: diplomatic, legal, political, and economic, to confront Israel's plans to annex Palestinian land and displace its people.
The time has come to take concrete action to implement this consensus and impose it at several levels. The first level is the expansion of the base of official recognition of the State of Palestine as an undeniable international reality. The second level is enabling the State of Palestine to obtain full-fledged membership in our organization, for which the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, has always called and advocated for, from this international auspice. The third level is confronting diplomatically, legally, politically, and economically the occupation's schemes aimed at seizing Palestinian lands and displacing the Palestinian people from their historic homeland. As for the fourth and final level, it concerns the Palestinian Internal Front, which is called upon to close its ranks and unify its stance in order to recover its independent decision-making, strong actions, influential voice, and regional and international resonance.
Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas praised Algeria's effort in supporting the Palestinian cause, particularly in its capacity as an Arab member of the United Nations Security Council. In his speech delivered via video conference on Monday at the high-level international conference for the peaceful settlement of the Palestinian issue and the implementation of the two-state solution, President Mahmoud Abbas also commended the position supporting the legitimate rights of the Palestinian people to freedom and independence.
We commend the role of the brotherly and friendly countries that support our cause in international forums, with special recognition of Algeria, which holds the Arab seat on the Security Council. We also value the positions of peoples and organizations that support the legitimate rights of the Palestinian people, foremost among them the right to freedom, independence, and the establishment of their own state.
And Algerian Minister of State, Minister of Foreign Affairs Ahmed Attaf took part on Tuesday in New York in the opening session of the general debate of the 80th session of the United Nations General Assembly, held under the theme Together for a Better World, 80 Years and Beyond for Peace, Development and Human Rights. The general debate will allow world leaders and heads of participating delegations to address the most pressing issues and concerns facing the international community in the context of growing challenges related to international peace and security, as well as sustainable economic development. Algerian Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf stressed that the Zionist entity seeks to eliminate any prospect of establishing an independent Palestinian state. Speaking at a high-level UN Security Council session on Palestine and the Middle East, he added that Israel also aims to redraw the region's borders according to its own whims and illusions.
إن مجلسنا هذا لم يعد بحاجة لفك الألغاز.
Our council no longer needs to decipher riddles. Now that the Israeli occupation itself openly declares its aims before the eyes of the world, the Israeli occupation seeks, first of all, to eliminate any prospect of the establishment of an independent and sovereign Palestinian state, not only on the land, but also, if it can, in mind and consciences. Second of all, the Israeli occupation seeks to redraw the borders of the region according to its whims, illusions, and fantasies, relying on one of its most dangerous false myths, the myth of the Greater Israel. The history of this region is engraved in the resolutions of our Council, which affirm that there is no alternative to the two-state solution and no escape from the establishment of the Palestinian state on the 1967 borders with Al-Quds al-Sharif as its capital.
على حدود عام 1967 وعاصمتها القدس الشريف.
Algerian Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf affirmed that Gaza has been facing genocide for nearly 2 years, stressing that Israel's plan for displacement, reoccupation, and annexation of Gaza and the West Bank are already being openly implemented.
There is no longer any room for denial that what Gaza has been subjected to for nearly 2 years is a total and comprehensive war of extermination, as confirmed by the UN Commission of Inquiry. And there is no longer any room for debate about the risk of famine in Gaza, after our organization itself confirmed this situation and officially declared it.
والإعلان عنها بصفة رسمية. لم يعد هناك أي مجال.
There is no longer any room for denial that what Gaza has been subjected to for nearly 2 years is a total and comprehensive war of extermination, as confirmed by the UN Commission of Inquiry. And there is no longer any room for debate about the risk of famine in Gaza, after our organization itself confirmed this situation and officially declared it.
والإعلان عنها بصفة رسمية.
And in the same context, the Algerian Foreign Minister also stressed that Israeli aggressions in the Middle East are wide open. He warned that this list of violations is likely to expand further, given the continuing threats against other countries in the region.
The scope of Israeli aggressions is wide open. Israeli aggression against Yemen, then Israeli aggression against Lebanon, then Israeli aggression against Syria, then Israeli aggression against Iran, and just a few days ago, yet another Israeli aggression against the state of Qatar. It is no secret to any of us that this list is bound to expand further in line of the continuing threats that have already targeted and continue to target other countries in the region. This is the unjust and tragic reality that the Israeli occupation is striving to implement as it races against time to open aggression front, one after the other. And thirdly and finally, the Israeli occupation seeks to deploy its absolute hegemony over the region and to appoint itself as its ultimate master and ruler.
وتنصيب نفسه الآمر والناهي فيها.
And many Palestinians were martyred and others wounded in Israeli airstrikes and gunfire that hit different areas of the Gaza Strip since dawn on Tuesday. Medical sources in Gaza hospitals reported that more than 34 Palestinians were killed, including 15 in Gaza City as a result of Israeli strikes and gunfire targeting displaced people in several areas of the Strip. Others were also wounded or reported missing since the early hours of the day. And Palestinians in Gaza City in northern Gaza were forced to bury their martyrs in the courtyard of Al-Shifa Medical Complex, unable to reach the city's cemetery due to the ongoing massive Zionist aggression on Gaza City. Palestinians expressed their shock at these scenes left behind by the Zionist machine of destruction, as everything in the city continues to be targeted.
My son, I lost my son, the dearest of my children, the dearest one, I lost him. As you can see, we don't know where to go or where to come. Every day it's from here to there. You don't know where to go. In the south we die, and here we die.
The Nasser Medical Complex in Khan Yunis, southern Gaza Strip, announced on Tuesday the martyrdom of 3 children as a result of Israel's starvation policy. Doctors at the complex said the 3 children arrived at the hospital in critical condition due to starvation and lack of care, stressing that the hospital lacks essential medicines and basic solutions that could have saved their lives. This comes amid warnings from UN organizations of an unprecedented humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza, where thousands of children face the risk of slow death from famine. The Spanish government has approved urgent measures to stop the genocide in Gaza, including a strengthened ban on arms trade with Israel. Spanish Economy Minister Carlos Huevro told local media on Tuesday that the sanctions also cover products from Israeli settlements and occupied territories, as well as the transit of fuel for military use through Spanish territory. He pledged to step up political and economic pressure to compel Israel to respect human rights, international law, and pursue peace. The White House announced that U.S. President Donald Trump will meet today, Tuesday, with leaders and officials from Arab and Muslim countries to discuss the situation in the Gaza Strip and present a proposal to end the war. White House spokesperson Caroline Leavitt told reporters that Trump will hold a meeting with Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, Egypt, Jordan, Turkey, Indonesia, and Pakistan, during which he will present details of a new proposal aimed at ending the war in Gaza as it nears its 3rd year. The command of the 6th Infantry Division in Al-Fasher, along with the joint forces and supporting units, announced that they repelled a large-scale attack launched by the Rapid Support Forces on the city from the southern and northeastern axis, using infantry and combat vehicles, inflicting heavy losses in personnel and equipment. Spokesperson for the 6th Infantry Division in Al-Fasher, Asya Al-Khalifa, told Al-24 News that the situation in the city is stable and under full control of the armed forces. She stressed that this major victory is dedicated by the army to the steadfast Sudanese people, affirming that victory will be theirs on all fronts in Al-Fasher, North Darfur State. The United Nations said that the Rapid Support Forces' refusal to provide security guarantees has prevented humanitarian aid from reaching the besieged city of Al-Fasher, which has been under militia blockade since May 2024. In a press statement on Tuesday, UN Resident Coordinator in Sudan, Denise Brown, said that Secretary General Antonio Guterres has called for a ceasefire in Al-Fasher, which is suffering under a suffocating blockade. She noted that humanitarian organizations have been unable to reach residents for more than a year, adding that humanitarian agencies have yet to receive the positive response they had hoped from the Rapid Support Forces. In other news, Russia announced on Tuesday that it had taken control of a large part of the city of Kupiansk in northern or northeastern Ukraine, confirming its intention to advance further into the Kharkiv region. In a statement, the Russian army said that control of Kupiansk would allow for deeper advances into the Kharkiv region, including toward the areas of Izium and Chuhyov. Speaking at the 80th session of the United Nations General Assembly, U.S. President Donald Trump warned that he was prepared to impose heavy tariffs on Russia if it refused to end the war in Ukraine, adding that Russia's war in Ukraine is not making Russia look good. Trump remarked that he initially believed it would be easier to end the war, explaining that his relationship with Putin had always been a good one. He went on to criticize Moscow's campaign in Ukraine, stating that Russia's war is not making Russia look good.
In the event that Russia is not ready to make a deal to end the war, then the United States is fully prepared to impose a very strong round of powerful tariffs which would stop the bloodshed, I believe, very quickly. But for those tariffs to be effective, European nations, all of you are gathered here right now, would have to join us in adopting the exact same measures. I mean, you're much closer to this. We have an ocean in between. You're right there. And Europe has to step it up. They can't be doing what they're doing. They're buying oil and gas from Russia while they're fighting Russia.
And Russian authorities denied any link to drone flights over the Danish capital Copenhagen, which forced a 4-hour shutdown of air traffic at its airports. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov told reporters Tuesday that accusations against Moscow are baseless, stressing Russia has no connection to the incident.
Frankly, making unfounded accusations every time leads to further such statements no longer being taken into account, because every time we hear unfounded accusations from there, a party that takes a serious and responsible position mustn't take such unfounded accusations again and again.
NATO warned Russia on Tuesday that it would use all necessary military and non-military tools to defend itself, as it condemned Moscow for violating Estonian airspace in a pattern of increasingly irresponsible behavior. The warnings, stated by the NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, came after Estonia said on Friday that 3 Russian MiG-31 fighter jets violated its airspace for 12 minutes before NATO Italian fighter jets escorted them out.
Following the meeting, allies issued a strong statement of solidarity and resolve. They condemned Russia's reckless actions, which are escalatory, risk miscalculation, and endanger lives. Allies affirmed yet again that our shared commitment to collective defense is unshakable. We do not want to see a continuation of this dangerous pattern by Russia, intentional or not, but we stand ready and willing to continue to defend every inch of Allied territory.
And Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said Russia is ready to continue honoring quantitative limits under the new START treaty for 1 year, provided the United States takes a similar position. Speaking to reporters Tuesday, Peskov warned of the risks if the Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty expires, stressing that the absence of such agreements carries serious dangers. He called for clear and unambiguous measures to be put in place.
We are prepared to continue to comply with quantitative restrictions for a year. This is what we will do. But this, of course, requires a mirror position from the United States. Clearly agreeing to such a document before the current one expires is virtually impossible. This is a very complex matter, and of course it requires a comprehensive approach. Under these circumstances, Russia will be prepared to comply with quantitative restrictions for another year. But this requires a corresponding position and a corresponding decision from the United States.
Addressing the United Nations General Assembly, U.S. President Donald Trump stressed that Iran must not be allowed to obtain nuclear weapons, emphasizing that its nuclear enrichment capacity was demolished in June's 12-day war. Trump carried on, labeling Iran as the world's #1 sponsor of terror, as he reminded that he sent the Supreme Leader a letter making what he described a generous offer, a pledge of full cooperation in exchange for a suspension of Iran's nuclear program.
There is no more serious danger to our planet today than the most powerful and destructive weapons ever devised by man, of which the United States, as you know, has many. Just as I did in my first term, I've made containing these threats a top priority, starting with the nation of Iran. My position is very simple. The world's #1 sponsor of terror can never be allowed to possess the most dangerous weapon.
In Algeria's Army Chief of Staff, Minister Delegate to the Minister of National Defense, General Said Shingriha, received Dmitry Shugayev, head of Russia's Federal Service for Military Technical Cooperation, at Army headquarters in Algiers. A Defense Ministry statement said the talks reviewed military cooperation and regional issues of common interest. General Said Shingriha stressed that reciprocal visits between the two sides have helped to activate a renewed dynamic in Algerian-Russian military cooperation.
It is my pleasure to welcome you and your accompanying delegation to the headquarters of the People's National Army on the occasion of this visit, which marks another milestone in strengthening the historic relations between our two countries in general and between our two military institutions in particular. Indeed, the recent high-level visits have enabled the activation of a renewed dynamic in the field of military cooperation, allowing for the expansion of prospects for bilateral partnership.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's a wrap for tonight's program. Thanks for watching and have a great night.